Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today we're plunging into something pretty deep, actually. It touches so many lives. That feeling, that impulse to constantly prove our worth.
Mm-hmm. That constant striving.
Exactly. We're going to unpack how early experiences, especially with certain kinds of personalities, can really shape how we see ourselves and what we do.
And crucially, what steps you can actually take.
Right. Specific steps to reclaim that strong sense of self, find validation from, well, inside yourself.
Yeah.
So our mission today, break down where these patterns start, face the challenge of changing them because it is a challenge, and get some practical tools for rebuilding.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
And the core idea, really, drawn from Luminousz Ztarr's presentation, Thriving Past Narcissistic Abuse, Releasing the Obsession to Prove Your Worth, is this. Damage might start early. Absolutely.
Often very early.
Very early. But the ability to repair, to actually thrive as an adult, that's real. It's achievable.
That's hopeful.
It is. So we'll hit three main areas. First, figuring out the origin, the roots of this obsession to please people.
Okay.
Second, looking at how to release resistance. That feeling of being stuck.
Resistance.
Big one. Huge. And finally, the really vital process of rebuilding your self-identification. Who are you really?
Okay, let's get into it. We start with something pretty fascinating. The power of the subconscious mind. It's immense, right? Often unseen.
Totally. It shapes our choices, feelings, how we see things, even our behavior. And we're not even consciously steering it most of the time.
So the big question from the source material is what happens when this powerful subconscious gets programmed really early in life? Maybe not always in the best way.
That's a critical point. The presentation highlights how kids, especially that have parents with cluster B traits, narcissistic personality disorder, NPD, falls under that umbrella.
Right, the dramatic, erratic cluster.
Exactly. Those children might be deceived, even groomed. The material states, and this is quite stark, that information downloaded by parents and grandparents with narcissistic personality disorder, NPD, into the subconscious mind of their children more than likely was and continues to be damaging.
Wow, like installing faulty software right at the beginning?
Sort of, yeah. Imagine the child's subconscious like a blank hard drive, and this damaging information is the initial data loaded onto it.
And the long-term effect of that initial download sounds significant.
Oh, absolutely. This isn't just passive storage. The source says this downloaded information is played or acted out, often for years, decades even.
Really?
Yeah, it shapes their view of the world, their relationships, their self-worth, potentially for their whole life, unless they consciously decide to step in and, rewrite that programming.
It makes so much sense when you think how incredibly impressionable kids are. The source points out a narcissistic parent can negatively influence their children as they continue to shape, mold, and groom them to supply them possibly for life. So it's not just passive, it can be quite active shaping.
It can be. And in that kind of difficult environment, kids often adapt. The material suggests two common paths emerge.
Okay, what are they?
Well, one path is they might become codependent adults, or maybe develop cluster C personality traits. It's the anxious, fearful cluster.
Right.
They become obsessed with pleasing others.
Yeah.
Sacrificing themselves, often carrying this really strong sense of obligation to please, and just deep feelings of unworthiness.
That sounds exhausting. And the second path?
The second path, maybe surprisingly, is that some might develop cluster B traits themselves.
Yeah.
They become obsessed with obtaining sources of supply from other people, mirroring the parent in a way.
Wow, so either becoming the pleaser or mirroring the pattern.
Kind of. It's also worth noting, the source mentions narcissistic parents often chose detachment as a defense mechanism before becoming parents. It wasn't about survival then. Whereas codependent parents often had identity crises before parenthood.
It's complex.
A real cycle. It sounds like a powerful, almost inherited pattern. But here's where the hope comes in, right?
Yes.
Despite this deep, early programming as adults, the material says there is a choice. You can choose to delete and replace the information within their own subconscious mind.
That's the empowering part.
It sounds incredibly empowering, but let's be real, also incredibly difficult.
Absolutely. It's not flicking a switch.
Which takes us right into the next segment.
Yeah.
The challenge of actually making these changes. The source says it can be very challenging to shift gears by becoming open to learning how to change the function of your personality for the sake of health and balance. So why? Why is it so hard to change something so deep, even when we know it's hurting us?
Well, part of it, according to the science cited, is that the core personality of an individual is totally developed by the age of 7.
By 7. Wow.
Yeah. And as people get older, it just becomes very challenging to change. We get, set in their own ways.
Comfortable, even if it's uncomfortable comfort.
Exactly. We become more resistant to changing not just life circumstances or the subconscious stuff, but even our basic behavioral patterns. It's like a deeply worn path in your brain. Forging a new one takes real effort.
And that resistance itself can be the problem, can it?
It really can. The source warns, choosing to be in a state of resistance, whereas it pertains to investing in unhealthy relationships with those who choose to behave abusively, can be costly.
Costly in what way? Emotionally? Opportunity cost?
All of the above, potentially. It's not just passive. It's presented as an active choice, maybe subconscious, but a choice with real consequences, keeping you stuck.
It's easy to see how that resistance costs you. But I wonder, sometimes resistance feels like protection, doesn't it? Even if it's an old, maybe unhealthy defense now.
That's a great point. How do you tell the difference?
Yeah. And it feels like our ego often jumps in the way, too, preventing us from even seeing the need for change. The source mentions this. Egos can serve as stumbling blocks.
Definitely.
And it says one defense mechanism is denial, which leads to becoming resistant to much-needed change in order to thrive forward and heal. Denial is powerful.
So powerful. And as the source says, being resistant can leave individuals stagnant, stuck.
So how do you differentiate between helpful and unhelpful resistance?
Well, maybe the key is asking, is this resistance protecting me from actual harm right now, or is it just keeping me locked into old patterns that aren't serving me anymore?
Okay.
And this loops back to taking responsibility. The source suggests becoming knowledgeable of self and identifying stuck points can be one way to deal with the shadow side.
The shadow side. The parts we don't like to look at.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The unacknowledged, maybe repressed parts of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Dealing with that shadow side helps you possibly take full responsibility of relationship choices made within your own life. It's about shining a light, even when it's uncomfortable.
I really like the analogy the material uses here. It makes it feel more manageable.
Which one?
It says it can help to place the ego in the passenger seat while providing a reality check on what needs to change in our life.
Yeah. The ego isn't driving anymore.
Right, you're driving. You're taking the wheel back from that part of you that just wants to keep things the same, even if the same is painful, in order to successfully continue to thrive forward past unhealthy relationships.
It's a great visual, taking control back.
So, okay, if these patterns are laid down so early, often through really difficult childhood experiences, trauma, how do you even start to repair and rebuild your actual identity, your true self?
It's a huge task.
The source really highlights how hard this is. It notes that some do not have a strong sense of self to begin with due to their childhood trauma at the hands of narcissistic parents and abusers while growing up.
Yeah, it's like the foundation wasn't solid to begin with.
Exactly, like trying to build a house on shaky ground.
It really is. And what we often see, what the material points to, is this common experience of unworthiness and anxiety for people with that history.
Deep feelings of just not being good enough.
Right. A poor or distorted self-image, as the source puts it, is almost literally downloaded into the child's subconscious mind by the narcissistic parent. It's not just a bad mood, it becomes a core belief.
Downloaded, that word again, it really emphasizes the external source of it initially.
It does. And we need to remember, looking at the bigger picture, this identity crisis. It might not be from just one person.
Right.
The source says it could be the aftermath abusive behavior of several narcissists in a person's life since their childhood.
Oh, wow. Multiple sources compounding it.
Yes. And we also have to acknowledge the different layers of trauma involved. The source lists emotional, spiritual, psychological, sexual, verbal, and physical abuse. It can be a really complex mix of wounds.
Hearing all that, the layers, the multiple sources, the deep programming, it sounds incredibly overwhelming. Like, where would you even begin to rebuild?
It can feel overwhelming, absolutely.
And this is important. The source does offer a message of hope, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Despite the immense challenge, it states clearly that it is possible to work a strong support base to continue to thrive forward past unhealthy relationships.
Okay, that's key. Support. And the possibility of thriving.
Yes. It really points towards that light at the end of the tunnel. It emphasizes that you don't have to do this rebuilding work alone.
That's crucial. Okay, so let's bring this right back to you, the listener. What does this mean practically? What are the actual tools, the concrete steps the source gives us to move forward, to release that obsession, to prove our worth?
Right, the practical application. The material offers several key tools, and they're really about shifting focus inward and towards healthy connections.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, practice becoming more mindful of your overall well-being. Simple, but foundational. Prioritize yourself.
Makes sense. What's next?
Second, give place to individuals that you have resonance with and who appreciate you. Basically, surround yourself with people who reflect your true worth back to you. Healthy mirroring.
Get rid of the distorting mirrors.
Exactly. Third, discontinue comparing yourself to those that mistreat you and who have no regard for you. You have to break that cycle of toxic comparison.
Stop giving them headspace.
Precisely. Fourth, remember that your life has purpose regardless of your challenges. This is about reclaiming your inherent value separate from what happened to you.
That's powerful.
Fifth, practice assertiveness. This is huge. The source says the false identity that the narcissist has bullied you into accepting is not serving you. Assertiveness helps you set boundaries around that false identity.
Reclaiming your space.
Yes. And finally, number 6, find constructive methods to validate yourself. This might be the most crucial one, learning to be your own source of affirmation, not needing it constantly from outside.
So it's really about internal shifts and external boundary setting.
A combination, yes.
Yeah.
Building from the inside out and protecting that inner work.
Okay. And to help you, the listener, really apply these ideas personally, the material offers something else too, some critical questions.
These are great.
Yeah, think of them like prompts for deep self-discovery, designed to kickstart that process of self-validation we were just talking about.
They really invite you to go deep. The first one is, who do you think and feel you are? Right away, challenging those old downloaded beliefs.
Okay.
Then, what roles and titles do you usually comply with in your relationships? This gets you examining your patterns where you might be defaulting to old scripts.
Seeing the habits.
Exactly. Then, how and what do you contribute in your own life? This shifts the focus to your agency, your value, your positive actions.
Recognizing your own impact.
Yes. And maybe the most direct one. Are you afraid of changing? This confronts that resistance we talked about head on.
Getting honest with yourself about the fear.
It's essential for moving forward.
So what a journey we've taken today. From understanding those deep, often subconscious roots of needing to prove worth.
Yeah, starting way back.
Through recognizing that powerful state of resistance that keeps us stuck.
The inertia.
And finally into the active, and I think really hopeful, process of rebuilding a true sense of self. It's about seeing those early programs and realizing, crucially, that you have the power to edit them now.
It is a challenging path. There's no doubt about it. But that power, the source talks about the power to delete and replace old information in your subconscious, the power to build a strong sense of self from the inside. It is there. It's within reach. So we really encourage you to sit with the tools and those critical questions we shared. Maybe you revisit them. They're not one-time fixes. They're ongoing practices.
Definitely. And as you continue on your own journey with this, maybe mull over this final thought, something to explore for yourself. If science suggests our core personality is largely set by age 7,
Yeah, that early marker.
what does it truly mean then to take responsibility, as the source says, for your relationship choices made within your own life as an adult? And how might putting your ego in the passenger seat, as that analogy went, truly unlock the potential for profound self-change and real freedom from those old, deeply ingrained patterns?
That's a deep question to end on. Lots to think about there.
Lots to think about. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.